In this tutorial, we're going to take a look at the two different kinds of mortgages, a fixed rate mortgage and a variable rate mortgage. And then we're going to talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages of each of these through a couple of examples. So for a fixed rate mortgage, the interest rate stays the same for the entire term of the mortgage. Now, term of the mortgage and the amortization term are not the same thing. The amortization term is the entire length of time it takes you to pay off the loan, which might be anywhere from 15 to 20 or 25 or 30 years. The term for the mortgage may last from several months to 5 years or more, but it's not going to be like 20 years or 25 years. Okay, the bank will not lock in for that amount of time. At the end of the term, you renegotiate your mortgage with the bank. Okay, so for a fixed rate mortgage, you know what that interest rate is for however many months or years. Okay, and at the end of that, you still owe some more money, probably, unless you're getting close to the end of your term, and you renegotiate with the bank to not refinance it, but to continue your mortgage. Now, if the interest rate has gone up, your payments are going to be higher when you renegotiate. If the interest rate has gone down, your payments are going to be lower. Okay, you can choose to increase them to make them higher to pay it off quicker. Okay, but if you didn't decide to pay extra, then your payments, if the interest rate's down, then your payments aren't going to be as high; they're going to be lower. Now, for a variable rate mortgage, the interest rate fluctuates or changes throughout the term of the mortgage, and it goes with what's going on in the business community, not business community, the financial community now. The Bank of Canada sets an interest rate, and the banks they decide, well, the interest rate's gone up, so we're going to put our mortgage rate up a little bit, or it's gone down, so we're going to go down a little bit. So that's what fluctuates. So variable rate mortgage, the amount of interest, the interest rate is actually changing throughout the term of your mortgage. So if the rate goes down, you pay less interest. Now, if you're paying less interest, remember the interest and what you're paying off what you owe, the principal, remember they always add up to your monthly payment. So if you're paying less interest, then the principal gets paid off more quickly. If the rate goes up, though, you're paying more interest on those months, and then the principal gets paid off more slowly. So we're going to take a look at a few examples of that. So here's the first one to start with. Let's say your mortgage is $800,000, 1.9% for 25 years. And we're doing monthly. So here's your monthly payment, $3,349.13. Now, the interest in Canada is actually, even though you might be paying monthly or maybe biweekly, the interest is actually, the term is compounded semi-annually, twice a year. Okay, so normally, if we wanted to, let's say, determine this 1261.68, and so that means that this calculation is always going to be off by a few dollars. So if I take the $800,000, okay, for the very first payment, and multiply it by 1.9%, so that's 0.019, and this is monthly, so I'm going to divide that by 12. Okay, now, so this is always going to be within a few dollars of that. Okay, so if you want to know how much interest you're paying in a month, this calculation will get you within a few dollars of the actual amount you're paying. So, for example, if I wanted to check on this, let's say you're wondering in the 9th month how much interest you're going to pay, you have the table in front of you, you'd have to know, the balance from the previous month, so 783, 207.93. Okay, and excuse me, if I multiply that by 0.019 divided by 12, and so this gives us $1,240.08, and so that is, again, it's within a few dollars. This is $1,235.20. So this is always an approximate calculation. It will get you within a few dollars of where you should be. Now, so let's say you have a variable rate mortgage. So we're going to go on to another example. So this is the same one from the previous page. Now, look what happens. Let's say the interest rate jumped 2%, okay, 1.9 to 3.9, okay. If you were renegotiating your mortgage in this case, then instead of paying $33.49 a month, you'd be paying $4,165 approximately per month. Notice it's a lot more because the interest rate is, well, you know, pretty much doubled, okay. And note, compare the total interest, 204, about 205,000, and almost 450. Now, so if you have a variable rate mortgage, and you have this happen to you, let's say the interest rate jumped up a lot, okay. And actually, there's one more example that's even more. So let's say we're looking at the 6th payment and the 7th payment now. Remember, you'd have okay, so if we take this, clear my calculator. If we take this 787,425 and multiply it by 0.019 and divide by 12, okay? So again, that's how you would calculate the interest for this month. So take the previous amount, find 1.9% of it, divide by 12. Okay, so that would be that. Now, if I change this to, let's say, 3.9%, okay, notice that that's gone up a lot. So instead of paying the bank $1,242 approximately that month, you're actually paying them $2,559. Now, this is all going to come up in the here. That's the calculation I just did. So that means this amount is incorrect, like if the interest rate jumps up this much. So instead of paying $1,242, you're actually paying $2,559 approximately. Now, remember, this column is what comes off what you owe the bank. It's called the principal, okay, the principal payment. So instead of $2,107, you take the monthly amount you're paying and subtract the interest, because remember, these two always add up to the monthly payment. So if I take that $33.49.13 and subtract the amount of interest, then $1,090 is what this should be instead of $2,100. So, like in this case, if your interest rate stayed at 1.9, you'd actually, the amount you owe the bank would decrease by about $2,100. But now instead, because the interest rate's higher, it's actually only going down by a little over $1,000. Now, to start off the next month, we're not going to have this amount. Okay, we're actually going to have this amount minus the principal payment. So if I take the $787,425.82 and subtract the amount that came off my principal, that is $786,335. So you still owe the bank more. So the $785 isn't right. Should be $786,335.69, and then that's what the next month is going to start at. Now, so in this case, you're paying more interest. Not a great thing for the homeowner. Okay. Now, so this last example on the next page is something that actually has happened to people. Okay. So this is kind of scary if you have a mortgage, a variable rate mortgage. So let's say instead of 3.9%, let's say the rate jumped up to 5.5. Maybe not in a week, but maybe your variable rate mortgage is over several years, and over a long period of time, it went from 1.9 when you negotiated it, and now it's 5.5. Okay, so it's a lot of interest. So again, we're gonna start with the $787,425, and we're gonna calculate 5.5% of it. So $36.09 is the amount of interest for this month. Okay, so instead of owing the bank $1,241.85, you owe them $3,609, a lot more money. Now notice that the $36.09, the interest you owe, is actually higher than the monthly payment. Okay, so if we take the monthly payment and subtract the amount of interest, it's a negative. Okay, so what do you think that means? You can pause the video for a moment and think about that. So this is the amount that's going to go here. So instead of 2107 coming off the amount of money you own, this is actually a negative amount. Now this is a good example of subtracting a negative integer. So if we take the amount of money that you owed at the end of last month and subtract the negative 259.91, okay, 787. Now notice that the amount is bigger, okay, because subtracting a negative is the same as adding, okay. Because the interest is higher than how much you're paying each month, the principal isn't going down, it's going up. Okay, so at the beginning of the next month, you would actually, instead of 785,000, you owe 787,685. So this is what's called a negatively amortized mortgage. So if you have a variable rate mortgage and the interest rate fluctuates enough that it goes up so high that the interest you owe is higher than the monthly payment, then your principal is actually going up. You're not actually even paying enough interest to the bank, okay, because interest rate has gone up so high. So for a fixed rate mortgage, this is not going to happen to you in the middle of the mortgage term. Okay? For a variable, it could. Now, the thing about the variable rate mortgages is if interest rates aren't changing too much, then the variable rate are often a bit cheaper, the interest rate, than the fixed rate, but they can change. So the fixed rate is what's guaranteed. Variable rate can change. So it's something to think about when you are going to get that mortgage or loan. You don't have variable rate loans like for a car or an SUV or truck. This is only for mortgages. Okay. But for fixed rate stays the same, but variable rate can change. And this example is the scary thing. If it goes up so much that your amount you're paying each month isn't covering your interest, then you're not actually paying off your mortgage. And years could go by and the amount you owe the bank is actually going up. So that's not a good thing. So that's a little bit about the two different kinds of mortgages and what can happen if you have a variable rate mortgage and the interest rate goes up. And that's the end of the tutorial.